So this question is asking, over the past semester in EDUC 4400, what have I learned that will help me adapt my teaching practice to the needs of different learners with different needs? So I've talked a lot about it already, but my project one was about emotional disturbances in the classroom. And not only, it was a website talking about each one that I decided to research, but I also touched on what we can do as teachers in order to help students with emotional disturbances in the classroom. So I did have a student in my class who had really severe OCD and anxiety, and he had really, really severe test anxiety. So that's why I chose to do this project in the first place. But from this project, I was able to learn way more about anxiety and OCD than I already knew. And from that point, I was able to help him a lot more in my practice or in my placement because I knew more about what he was going through and because I knew different ways that I could help him. So that's just a way that this class helped me learn more and adapt my teaching practices to meet the needs of different learners. In this aspect, it was a learner with OCD and anxiety. The other thing that I want to touch on is two things that I did in my internship experience. So I have linked to a Google Doc where you can open that up, and the Google Doc will take you to a solutions website or a solutions doc that I have created. And basically what it is looking at one of my different lessons that I have taught or had taught to my students, and it was a math lesson about division, and it basically talks about, I had to identify the materials and methods, which I identified as videos, whole class, group work, worksheet from my guided practice, and worksheet from my independent practice. From that point, I had to talk about potential barriers or missed opportunities. So I was able to identify students who might struggle with each one, and then from that point, I had to apply a solution for that. So these were actually things that I implemented into my lesson. So during the video with my student who struggles with reading and my student who is an English language learner, I actually read the words aloud to those students as they were shown on the screen. So this document is just showing where I looked at into my lesson, and I thought about what could be a potential barrier for all my students. And then from that point, I talked about the solutions that I could use in order to help those students. And then the next document, you can open that up. And it is a document where I have taken the solutions and I have applied them to my division lesson plan. So I've taken into consideration all the different learners in my group, and I've implemented different ways that these students can be successful. So these two documents also show that in EDC 4400 and my clinical experience, I have practiced adapting my instructional practices to meet the needs of different learners. So in the very first one, I've learned more about emotional disturbances in the classroom, and then I've taken what I've learned and applied that to the student in my class who has OCD and severe test anxiety, and I use that new information to help him. And then in my internship experience, I addressed students with IEPs or with other issues in the classroom, and I developed a solutions worksheet where I talked about all the things that I could do to help my students or things that could possibly set my students back. I addressed those, and then I completed a final lesson plan including all of those aspects for those students so that I could, my teaching practices were able to meet the needs of different learners, and that's just the two evidences that I have for that.